I think Mahesh Babu is just such a star.
Right.
But it's.
I was going to say, I feel like there's a but coming.
There has to be.
Siddharth Anand still is the guy who really gives you the most bang for your buck in terms of the big. I think the way I see him is he brings that Hollywood sensibility of trying to make a Mission Impossible style, sleek, competent action film, but mixes it with our star worship. Hello and welcome to another episode of FC Popcorn, a Film Companion original podcast. Anu, Prathyush, thank you for being here. Today we are talking all things January. So we will start with the mammoth, the big one, Fighter. So you guys kick off. What did you guys think?
I have to tell you, I've discovered that the 7:30 a.m. show is amazing. Okay?
It's just you.
Actually not. There were at least I would say about 45-50 people there. There's no traffic on the road. The mall is empty. It's just all sorts of, and you're done at 10:30. Imagine at 10:30 on a release day, you're actually done with
Notice
watching.
how
She's
none of
not
this is
about the film. Yeah. It's about the timing.
traffic, logistics.
No, that's just to say.
The joggers on my way to the show.
That's just to say I had an epiphany, and I will be doing this more often. The early morning show, which you guys do a lot.
Yes, today we chose to do the 9 a.m.
Because that was
IMAX.
the earliest show for IMAX.
Yeah, we did the IMAX 3D.
Okay, I saw it in 2D.
Yeah.
How was the 3D?
We wanted to go for it because of the IMAX experience, because you want to be pressed up against the screen. Because I think that's the only way you can appreciate a film by Siddharth Anand. I was rewatching War last night and I found it so
How
dull.
much fun is it?
It's so dull on the small screen, Anu. It's so dull, so tedious, so long, because after a point, it's just a pile-up of action scene after scene, right? And there's only so much of that you can take on the small screen. These are things that you have to be pressed up against the screen.
So I have to say, I also rewatched War for this, and I enjoyed it.
It works.
So much.
Okay.
I'm still sort of into Kabir and Khalid and
Kabir and
Saurabh
Khalid
as
together.
that is also a possibility, and Colonel Luthra as
And
well.
of course.
But with this film, and I really enjoyed Pathaan too.
Same.
So I know it had its share of detractors, but I just thought that he finds that sweet spot between serious and sexy and silly. I think Siddharth Anand is just genius at doing that. With this film, I just felt like he leaned so much into this very shrill tonality, which, forget the politics of it, which we can keep aside. Even if you keep those aside, I think it damaged the storytelling.
Yeah.
For me, that was the issue, that you kept sort of beating the same one note in every other scene. And I felt like the screenplay really couldn't pull together all the threads. There were so many threads of the personal stories, the backstories, the frictions, the lack of trust, the loss of friends, etc., that I felt like the screenplay just wasn't able to kind of weave those things together in a way that kind of gave you that high at the end of it.
Do you remember in War, there's this one scene where Kabir is talking to the young girl, and the girl is like, I lost this match. And he's like, is this what your school teaches you? Harna jeetna.
Correct.
The thing that you have to do is...
Sorry, this is Vani Kapoor's daughter, right?
Vani Kapoor's
Yes,
daughter.
yes.
And so he's telling her, the small kid, that the thing you should do is bring yourself to the fight or whatever. Whether you lose or you win doesn't matter. The fact is that you have to bring yourself, the whole of yourself, to it. So there's this ambivalence towards winning and losing, which you see in the way they're playful and they're bumbling. There's that scene where both Hrithik and Tiger are being whacked around by this villain, and then they have to come together to take him down, because
Correct.
individually they can't.
Yeah.
But that kind of playfulness is lost here, because there is a scene here where they say, Jang mein haar ya jeet hoti hai. So suddenly you have to pick sides, and so there's a sort of sobriety that comes into the characters. There's no playfulness.
At all.
There's no joy.
Yeah.
So there's that sort of starched tone that sort of infects the film. So you're right. Like, by choosing the politics where you are a winner or a loser, you are infecting your film, because you have to leech it off anything that can make them slightly more playful, slightly more unstable. They have to be the hero.
Yeah.
They have to be that, granite-abbed hero. So yeah, I
And
do
the
agree with
granite
you.
abs were lovely, just putting it out there.
They were because we didn't get to see them in War, right?
They were alluded to in War. No, but just in terms of War, I have to say, I think the more we watch these films, and we're going to be watching a lot more of them, right? The Spy Universe and everyone who's makes some version of that film. I do think War, which is a film I'm a massive fan of, is only going to increase over time. I think that just the value of that film, of that big flashy action blockbuster that's having so much fun. I just think we're going to be talking about it more and more every year.
Yeah.
The more we see sort of diluted versions of it or sort of less impressive versions of it. But with Fighter, I think it worked for me a bit more than it did for you guys. For me, the thought I kept having is when it lets itself be a big, flashy, decently executed, slightly bloated action film, that's when it worked for me. When it isn't buried in weird politics and all the stuff that just makes you uncomfortable and all that, like Anu, the way you mentioned that it keeps beating the same drum. If you put that aside, the times and the portions where it just lets itself be an action film,
which is what he's good at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just good guys and bad guys and saving the day and the big hero, star worship in such a fun way when he does it right. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it you just have to keep, because the two parts of the film keep wrestling with each other, and then you keep sort of finding yourself falling out of it and coming back to it.
Yeah.
I did feel like there were lengthy portions more in the second half that didn't have much to say, which again always happens with these films. They're always more bloated. There's always that need to be almost 3 hours for reasons I don't understand.
I love what you said after you walked out of the film. He's like, the parts of the film that you loved more than you hated the parts of the film that you hated. That was his reaction to the film, which I thought was very...
I still think if I was a star, Siddharth Anand still is the guy who does that really well, who really gives you the most bang for your buck in terms of the big... I think the way I see him is he brings that Hollywood sensibility of trying to make a Mission Impossible style, sleek, competent action film, but mixes it with our star worship.
Absolutely.
And I think War is probably the greatest example. Pathaan, definitely. And here there were sort of moments of that. You saw it and I did feel it. But yes, it's buried in a lot of other stuff that really takes you out of it.
But even the relationship between Patty and Minnie,
Yeah.
I thought there were moments there where you saw a little bit of playfulness.
Where, Anu? Where?
Come on,
I felt it in the first half.
yeah, he's just being mean.
Yeah.
In the first
Yeah,
half
I did.
it is. And they're both, of course, so gorgeous. And you want them to be together.
Yeah.
And I liked that, spoiler alert, that they are not in the traditional sense together.
Yeah.
So it's just, I felt like there was so much more that it could do. But it just keeps going down back that road of, but we are patriotic, and we get it. We got that in the first frame. When he walks into the frame and it's Patty, the best of the best, our very own homegrown maverick. We get it. So I'm not sure why the screenplay just chose to repeat that one thing again and again for everything. Even Minnie's backstory finally comes down to she's worthy of your praise because she's a patriotic pilot.
And because the hero convinced her parents, because
That's
the
right.
hero...
That's
but
right.
Can we just talk about Minnie for a second? Because I really felt like I love watching Deepika and I think she would make such a badass action hero, but I just felt this film really let her down. We were doing all the analysis of how she doesn't pass any Bechdel tests anytime soon. She's not instrumental to the plot. If anything, his two friends, the ones who get captured, spoiler alert, they are still more instrumental. She is there to love him. She doesn't get one badass moment in the final action.
Absolutely. Where's the Gatling gun?
Yeah,
No,
and there's also something I was thinking about later where like all the men in this world get to shoot planes and be cool. The women are in helicopters getting to save people. It is that thing of you can save people, but like she didn't even get a single moment, a single heroic moment, and I really felt that like she deserved better. And I don't know why we didn't get to see that, but
This is where I might disagree with both of you, in the sense that I get that the language of the big film is excess, right? That excess is the grammar of this kind of movie making. But with Siddharth Anand, very specifically, I think what often happens is he mistakes a more chaotic, sputtering edit for suspense or for tenseness. There's never a sense of time ticking in his movies, though time is ticking very often. I still remember, in Top Gun Maverick, of which this film is very liberally taking notes from. But in that, there's this one scene where he's taking off his fighter jet, and as the jet is whooshing, you can see the roof of the thing trembling. You can see the guy standing and his hair just being swept up. You're seeing sort of the space-time being just ripped apart by the flight. There is no sense of
that.
any of that in this
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
There's no sense of space, like the way light is in Hyderabad is the same way the light is in Kashmir, the same way. Like there's no sense of building a world, of inhabiting it with that sense of time is going and you might lose your life. There's no existential dread.
Also because the villain is so one note now.
True.
I
That
mean,
is true.
dread hi nahi hai.
That is true. That is very
I
true.
mean, I was just like, is
Do you
blood
know
eye
like
didn't do
the
it for you.
red eye?
no, but I was like, is he great as a one-note villain? Is he just giving a really good performance as a one-note villain, or can he not act? Which is why this is a one-note villain. I couldn't fathom what the deal was, and I just felt like, what Siddharth did with John in Pathan was you felt afraid for Shah Rukh.
Yeah.
At least momentarily, you were like, oh my God, this man could take him out. But there's not
No,
a chance
Yeah.
that poor Azhar Akhtar.
Even if you ignore the politics, some of it is just excessive for no reason. Like, he has his nemesis Red Nose, the other pilot,
Correct.
which is a great name.
Yeah.
And
With
to
coal
me,
eyes.
it was enough that Red Nose is his big villain to
Yeah.
take down. But at some point, you have a scene where Red Nose is laughing maniacally for no reason. You've established he's the threat. I believe it. But then there was no need for that. But I also wanted to ask what you guys thought of the action, because my big fear going into this film was that the CGI wouldn't be great. It wouldn't be convincing. Obviously, it's not going to live up to Top Gun. And I was surprised when I found that actually it was fairly
wasn't bad.
It
Yeah.
was convincing.
Yeah.
At no point did I not believe that these are planes in the sky doing battle. But I was more put off with the sort of the editing and the rhythm of it. For me, it was the aerial equivalent of, when you see hand-to-hand fight scenes and it's so choppily done that do you know exactly what's going on?
Right.
I felt that with a lot of the aerial sequence, especially in the first half, where you're trying to figure out who's who and exactly what's happening in the sky.
Yeah.
I largely know who's winning and who's losing, but the specifics of it just felt very, very choppy.
Yeah.
Um,
It's disorienting.
yeah, it was, it was.
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
the last fight. I
Which
think
was-
the camera just was like put in a container and been shaken around.
Yeah.
Because you felt dizzy, especially when in IMAX I thought I was losing my sight after a
Yeah,
point.
no, that's why I chose to be. I was like, it's gonna be too much. But moving on.
Yes.
To
How does
a
it
film that
yeah.
I loved,
Yeah.
which was Merry Christmas. I don't know how you guys felt about that. I thought that relationship between the two leads was just so lovely. I was very swoony by the end of it. Was anybody else swoony?
I am glad.
No.
I'm glad
Prathyush
to,
is like, no.
I'm glad to have watched this with Prathyush because everyone has loved that film but me. And sort of we largely agree on a lot of things on that film. And because I had such an existential crisis because it didn't work for me. I mean, it did in elements, but I didn't feel that connection, which is
Right.
instrumental to the film. And I literally felt like there's something wrong with me. I'm dead inside. Why is it just me? Because for me, it was, at least the first half, it felt like a very lethargic first half. You're waiting for things to kick off. I didn't feel that 96 level connection I want to feel for Vijay Sethupathi and Katrina. I was constantly suspicious as like, okay, what's the vibe here? And then obviously the film kicks into gear in the second half and you're much more invested. But still, I just feel like feeling for them and connecting to them on a romantic level outside of the crime stuff is instrumental. And I never...
Yeah, the crime stuff I actually found pretty lame.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't care. And that explanation was so outrageous, of what happened that I just was like, no, I'm not invested in this. But I loved the two of them. And I especially loved him. I thought he's just so wonderful.
I had probably the reverse of what you felt, which is the film feels like a Lego, like constructing Lego, that there's this frustration that you're sort of working with, and then it finally clicks into place.
Correct.
And when it does, there is the pleasure of that clicking into place, however bizarre the reasons are. But it's the small clues that keep accreting over the film that I lost patience with. Because I did not feel they had any abiding chemistry with each other. A lot of people felt it. I didn't.
Neither did I.
I thought a lot of the scenes that you were building, like, him going and buying that small, tinsel thing, just the small scenes that you're building, which you develop later,
Correct.
had a lethargy to it. That was not, there was
You
nothing
could see the
compulsive.
building blocks,
You
like
could see
set
it.
up, yeah.
You were seeing that this is an instrumental scene. This is not a scene that
Makes you feel.
can stand on its own. And what didn't work at all for me was that opacity of Katrina Kaif, which is supposed to be mysterious, I suppose, but it came across as opacity to me. As a film, it was very... So when it clicked into place, though, when it all comes together, then I thought I was having more fun with the film, because suddenly nothing was instrumental anymore. No scene was instrumental. Every scene was standing on its own. Because especially after Andhadhun, where every scene was wicked. There was something...
But only for the first half, Prathyush. I felt the
Really?
second half of Andhadhun felt to me very
Convoluted.
convoluted and unnecessary, just to keep it going.
I love that about it. though.
Really?
That
Yeah.
excess is always welcome in my...
So I like the
books.
Yash Chopra excess. Excess would pretty people.
And chiffon.
And chiffon,
Switzerland.
yes, not plot.
I will say though, for Merry Christmas, it's one of those films where, like, even if it didn't work for me, I'm very much rooting for it because so much of it felt so specific and almost risky to me. It's
Yeah.
not doing something at every moment. It's not pandering and making sure that the audience is consistently, in quotes, entertained.
Right.
And it's something very specific. There's something really personal about that film, and it's the kind of thing where, like, I really hope people watch it and champion it because, you know, we need more narratives in mainstream cinema that are doing well, because right now it's very
Right.
you know, people in fighter jets and things like that. So yeah, I mean, just for that, I'm very much rooting for the film. But yeah, I wish I felt that connection. I just wanted to feel that love or that chemistry or connection, whatever you want to call it.
I did feel it though, that last moment.
Yeah.
That last moment.
Oh my God, when he puts the ring on her
Yeah.
finger. it was
That's
so
when I
perfect.
felt it.
Yeah.
You know, and which is why it's hard to really criticize this movie, because what are you criticizing? Because it's all coming together in the
Right,
end.
right.
But I can't also deny the frustration I felt in the
Through
journey
it,
through
yeah.
there. But how do these two films stand among the rest of your January film watching experiences?
What have you seen, Suchin? You must have seen a lot of shows. My God, how much has dropped?
January, 3 big shows I've seen so far, which is fairly big. So there was on Netflix, there was Killer Soup, which I really, really enjoyed. It's Abhishek Chaubey. It's a really delicious, sort of wacky, dark comedy. I mean, you know, it's very hard to get that right, and very few people do it. And I really thought it's a very weird show, and I don't mean that in a bad way. And I absolutely vibe with its weirdness. It's Manoj Bajpayee in a double role, and he's having an absolute blast with it. It's Konkana Sen Sharma. It's Abhishek Chaubey. It's such a cool cast, and I did feel like, you know, it was slightly too long and things like that. But when it works and gives you those highs, it really hits a very distinctive tone. And so I thought it was a great start to the year. There was Indian Police Force, which is Rohchetty's show on Amazon, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. I will say it's one of those shows where when it's constantly in motion, I actually quite enjoyed the action. You know, it's very ironic that he's done more creative. He's tried to do something more creative and inventive with action on the small screen than he ever has on the big screen. But anytime it focuses on characters and emotion and drama, it's, you know, it's almost like skip the next action scene. And then there was Karma Calling on Hotstar, which was a remake of the American show Revenge, and it was pretty unwatchable. And 7 episodes of not much, I would say. But that's everything on the show front. But what about the films? Have you guys seen?
I saw Captain Miller. We watched
Yes.
Hanuman together. I also saw Guntur Kaaram. So I've done my Pongal releases.
How was Guntur Kaaram?
You know, I think Mahesh Babu is just such a star.
Right.
But it's.
I was going to say, I feel like there's a butt coming.
It has to be, because it felt so formulaic.
Right.
You know, there was like nothing that, and you know, it's that same familial kind of environment and family and dysfunctional family, which we saw in Allah Vaikunta Purumalo. It's the same director, but it's just the beats are okay, and the women are of course just.
Ornamental.
Matlab to another level of, you know, Christmas tree ornamental.
Not even gold, just tinsel.
Just tinsel.
It'll make Fighter look like a feminist film.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not, you know, honestly, if you do this as long as I have, you make your peace with that
Yeah,
stuff.
you're
Right.
right.
You know, I'm at that point. Somebody told me that Kabir Khan once said that he can abide anything in a film, but he can't abide bad politics. And for me, I'm okay with bad politics. I've come to that place.
You have to, I mean, nowadays you have
But just
to
entertain me.
Yeah. It's annoying. The amount of times you just have to say shaky politics aside, you know,
Yeah.
for the big, like, you
Which
have
is
to.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm now at that. But so this was it just became such a slog beyond a point. You know, I thought Captain Miller Dhanush was just
Agreed.
incredible.
Yeah.
You know, even though again too long, and my God, the level of violence, like what is going on? Why do we need that much sort of, you know, head splattering and blood splattering?
This is not beautiful though.
No, my friend, I'm not a fan. But I thought it did such interesting things. And I really enjoyed that. But Hanuman was the one that really blew me away. You know, a steep decline in the last half an hour.
Very much so.
But
That second
before
half,
that,
yeah.
it's just like, what an idea, Sarji.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was great fun.
That image of that fight against the pickling woman.
The pickling women, I was like, wow, like, how do you even think of this? It's all in song. It's a slow motion sequence. It was just fabulous. I had such a good time.
I was a big fan of it. I just thought that, again, the way it mixed mythology, made a homegrown superhero film, made it very sort of, he really made it his own. And I really like how playful and cheeky it was. The first half really felt like a Telugu film. You know, how heavy it goes on romance and comedy. There was like a spirit to it that I felt was missing in like Pramastra, which was big on visuals, but you know, you didn't really feel much.
Yeah.
There's nothing distinctive about that tonality. I did have issues with the second half. You know, there was a lot, you know, it takes a while and there's long stretches of not much to say. I did feel quite tired by the end, but just its achievement, what it pulled off visually in that budget, the world it sort of dares to sort of create. I was a fan. It has that scene I absolutely love, which is when to his best friend, he says, I have superpowers, and his best friend says, well, prove it, because like all of our heroes have superpowers.
Correct.
And he has to prove the extent of his strength, and it's a homage to various stars.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, you need that.
It's so clever.
Yeah, because you can't have Indian superheroes because our superheroes can beat up 2,000 guys.
That's right.
So here's a film that says, you know what, I'll beat up 3,000 guys. You know, that's how you have to prove it. And I thought it was so cheeky and so sweet.
Yeah, I haven't seen any shows. Have you?
Not really. I did watch Indian Police Force, which I thought was quite abysmal. But he's right in saying that what Rohit Shetty is doing with the action sequences itself is fascinating. Like, the camera is swooping. There are these long takes. There's an ambition here that I think he's sort of borrowing from the ambition of like a Rajan DK, you know, just like taking these long sequences and just exploding them with style, which I did enjoy. I did it, but I also got a little exhausted by the color correction. I think there's something very off about this jaundiced look that this show has. Also,
I mean, it has to be said that to be a Rohit Shetty super cop, there is a level of charisma required, which, you know, I didn't feel Siddharth Malhotra had in that role. So that has to be said as well.
But I did watch Kaurismaki's Fallen Leaves, which dropped on Mubi finally, and I was so taken by that world. Have either of you watched
I haven't seen it.
Can I just say the Rohit Shetty? That segue. That's
the range.
That's the beauty of
Yeah.
being companion and our lives, right? That you can go from one to the next and enjoy both equally.
Yeah, the average week can be quite schizophrenic in a wonderful way.
Yeah. Go on about Fallen Leaves.
No, because I had to do a movie watch list on Kaurismaki's movies, because Mubi has a list of all his movies. There's a retrospective going on of his cinema, and he did this thing called the Finland trilogy, which is actually called the Loser trilogy, because they're about losers, and by losers of globalization, because Finland in the 90s, after the breakup of Soviet Union, lost its main trading partner, so there was a spike of unemployment. And I love the fact that you have this sort of structural change happening in the economy, and that's producing a genre of cinema.
Wow.
You know, the way like a Bachchan, people argue, came out of the disillusionment of the 70s, though of course Javed Saab denies all of that, or the 90s cinema came out of the liberalization, privatization of, you know, Karan Johar's films came out of the liberalization that happened in 1991. So I like that when you're seeing something in society tangibly invoked in cinema. So that was very exciting. So yeah, Kaurismaki.
And I have to say that I'm excited about Shahid Kapoor and Kriti Sanon as a robot. Like, what fun.
Really?
I watched that trailer, and you know that thing they keep saying, high concept film. That is a very high concept
It is
film.
a high concept film. Come on.
Yeah, that trailer had more twists than I saw coming. I was like, the first half of the trailer is one genre, then it dives into family drama comedy, and then it's full sci-fi, and I'm like, you know what? Sign me up. Like,
Yeah, why
I'm all,
not?
let's see.
I'm
Why
excited for
not?
love. I'm excited to see love on the screen. I think we've
Yeah.
forgotten what love means.
So
Yeah.
when you say love, do you mean the genre, or do you mean the Pansali film he just announced?
Speaking of which, smooth segue into
Love and War.
I love it. Listen, I cannot wait. I mean, first of all, what a star cast.
Yes.
Ranbir Alia and Vicky Kaushal is just so exciting. Like, what a acting masterclass potential there is here.
extremely excited. So I'm writing a monograph on his movies right now, and so I've been watching all of his movies repeatedly. And despite that, there's no lethargy, no monotony that's set in.
That's
I'm
wonderful.
still excited to watch a Devdas for like the 400th time, literally. I'm still excited to watch these movies again. I'm still excited for that brand of cinema. I've now got desensitized to his beauty, his audacity and his beauty. So yes, that's something I'm excited. I love the poster, the fact that they just put the signatures of the actors. I thought that was very sweet. I don't remember the last time I've seen that happen, you know?
Yeah.
There's something very personalized about the announcement. Though I'm a little shaky about the English, like Love and War.
I'm hoping it's a working title.
Yes,
I'm
me
not gonna lie. I am hoping, because Pansali is known for his titles, and I just feel like this is quite...
Gangubai Kathiawadi and Bajirao Mastani, Love and War.
This is off
Off-brand.
brand, yeah.
Yes.
But no, that is a very, very cool cast, and we very much look forward to seeing what that becomes. after he has his big Netflix show, Hiramandi, which will also...
Absolutely. Which will, at the very least, just be beautiful.
Yes. And we hope beauty is enough to sustain 8 to 10
Listen, beauty gets me through a lot of things.
Beauty is
okay?
almost always enough.
Yeah. I agree. When, truly in Fighter, when some of those aerial acrobatics were getting a bit much for me, it's focusing on Hrithik's green eyes, and why not?
I
right?
loved, coming back to it, I love the way it capitalized on his eyes. I really like that sequence where it's him talking to Red Nose and all you see are their eyes.
Just
Yeah.
the eyes,
And it's just
yeah.
conveying through their eyes, and I was like, I love that scene.
Yeah.
It's
The
very-
crinkle in the corners.
Yeah.
You never notice that.
See, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That he's letting those crow's feet
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
and it's not been digitally erased.
It's called crow's feet.
Crow's
There must be
feet.
more
They're
elegant
three.
way of calling it.
Trust me, I'm old enough to have them.
Peacock's feet, maybe. I don't know. Like,
Prathyush is stealing that term for his next review. Whatever it is, he's going to throw crow's feet in there.
That's so funny. Am I like the only one in this podcast who knows the term crow's feet?
I think I was aware of it, but I don't mind rediscovering it in this way. I'm
This
good.
is ageist. Let me just tell you that, okay?
God. Speaking of Bhansali Anu, Sudeep Chatterjee.
So exciting. I tell you this. So this is through the lens, which is our kind of celebration of cinematographers, cinematography, a kind of a masterclass, if you will, trying to kind of thoda sa educate me as well as other film lovers about the art and what goes into it. And so the first episode dropped in January, which was with Sudeep Chatterjee. And of course, we talked endlessly about his work with Sanjay Leela Bhansali and just, the creation of it and like specific scenes. And it's just so refreshing to speak to like the behind the scene artists, and I asked Sudeep, I was like, does ego ever come in the way? Because you're like, and he said it's like co-parenting a child, right? And he said, no, if ego comes in the way, then be the director. Like, you can't have an ego as a cinematographer, which is just so lovely. And we're doing several more shows, and I'm just so excited about this series. I feel like, I hope we can do more and more of this. Celebrate people who are not in front of the camera.
The technicians.
Yeah,
who are artists also. I think
Absolutely.
The word technicians is always
the
quite
word
reductive.
technicians is also, it is a little... I loved how in that episode he spoke about, lighting Alia's face a certain way. And bringing out the psychology of the character
Of
through
just
the lighting.
the light coming on her face
The
and what that
intentionality,
meant. Yeah, exactly. I just thought, like when I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, very pretty. But the pretty has an emotion.
It does, yeah.
And it was so nice to kind of do a deep dive into that. For me, as just a listener, it was a real education.
When I first found out that, we were doing the series, that, I was incredibly excited because, to do the job that we do, you are an internal student, but there's something about cinematography. I think I'm going through a phase right now where you really do want to understand the art form so much better. You want to understand what it conveys. And just when I saw that and to know that it is a series that Anu, you're doing, I can't wait to just catch all of them because there's just so much artistry there that just doesn't get talked about. And that's so much conveyed through that form that people don't appreciate, and I can't wait to learn a lot more about it.
Absolutely.
What about the Festival of Young Cinema Asia Europe?
Thank you, Prathyush, for reminding me that, among other things, I also in January, I was just at the Cannes Film Festival is called an accompaniment, which is the basic +1.
It sounds like food.
It's the +1 to the star, which was my husband, Vinod, because 12th Fail was the closing film at the festival. So it was really interesting because I used to live in Hong Kong when I was in high school, which you can imagine was many years ago, decades ago, and I haven't been back since then. So for us to we landed in Hong Kong and then drove to Macau, was just fascinating to see, of course, how much the landscape has changed, but also Macau is like this, it's the Las Vegas of the East, right? It's a gambling city, and so there's just these bright lights and we went to the Venetian, which of course has these indoor canals. And it was so odd because I've never been to Las Vegas. I had no idea that this is a thing. And so when I saw it on Google, I was like, oh, nice. Let's go somewhere. There are canals. We'll walk out to the sun. And lo and behold, it's all indoors. It's like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
It really is. It's all perfectly controlled, but the lighting changes depending on the time of the day.
In a way that the fighter movie doesn't.
Yes, exactly. But it was like fascinating and a little creepy and just all sorts of amazing. And you know what was amazing to me was like, I didn't know how the film would translate. Yeah, because obviously we don't know what the Chinese subtitles are. Also, you know, UPSC is such a specific Indian thing.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I don't even know if they're going to connect to this. And they were also crying and they were also cheering, and it was just so moving. You know, it was just very, very moving. So that was an amazing experience.
Did you go on the slotting machines?
I don't gamble at all.
That is a strictly after podcast conversation.
Genuinely. My big ambition was to just find vegetarian. That was like my
You were gambling a
slot
diet
machine.
instead.
Yeah, like, do I get veggie food or not? Like, will they get it that I'm gluten-free, dairy-free and vegetarian? What are the chances?
Patriotic rice.
That's right. But it was great fun.
That sounds amazing.
It was. It genuinely was amazing. And you may or may not go to Berlin.
I am. I'm finally all the stars aligned.
How exciting!
That is so
It
cool.
is- Oh my god! To just get the funding and get all of it like in place. I dropped my passport in the middle of Lower Parel by mistake. It's just like everything.
Which is not part of the visa process. It was a mistake.
It's not. It
Just
was a
clarify.
mistake. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a Marathi man like yelling behind me like and I was like ignoring him because I was like he's shouting at me because I did something wrong, but no, because I dropped my passport. But yeah,
Wow.
all of the stars
What a
have
good
aligned.
Samaritan.
I know. Like
Yeah.
thank God for Marathi anger.
Yeah.
So Berlin's happening. I'm very excited. It's my first international film festival.
Wow.
I do love film festivals. I think we're just like drenched
They're
and
magical.
doused in cinema. You're walking out dead and blurry-eyed, and all of the images are coming together, and your dreams are ransacked by these strange. In my first Mami, I remember I was not able to sleep properly because it's like Russian warscapes, Indian farmers, like all of it just like bunged together into my sleep.
Especially, I love the term drenched in cinema, but especially if these are movies that are not part of your day-to-day job, you know,
Yes.
things you
Yeah.
get to experience that are so far removed from.
And Suchin, so many of them you know nothing about.
Exactly.
You
exactly.
know, nothing at
Yeah.
all. You just go in and you let it wash over you. You know, it's so much fun. I'm jealous. Nice.
But
Please take warm clothes.
yeah. Yes.
It is frighteningly cold.
Warm clothes and a warm body.
There you go. And we shall reconvene
Yes, absolutely.
at some point
Yeah.
to discuss how exciting February was.
Yeah. Look forward to it.
Fingers crossed.